Well, it's 5:30 and I will start giving introductions on my end. And then actually during this break, I remembered that this is the 13th virtual meeting that we've held. It 1 year ago this month was our first one. So thank you all for kind of sticking in there. I mean, I guess we've all had to. But also a big thanks to our communications staff. Joe Rice has been with us every meeting. But this month we have Lasheen. You know, they do a big help for us each month. So anyway, just a nice reminisce. And with that being said, good evening. Welcome to the June 2021 Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review virtual meeting. We're now live on channel 10 and we're continuing to stream on the city's streaming channels. My name is Robert Watkins. I'm city staff and I will be moderating tonight's meeting. Before I hand things over to Carl Schwartz, our chair, I'm going to go over a few guidelines and housekeeping tips just to make sure that it runs smoothly for everybody who's joined. So first, for everybody who might be watching at home, I'm going to introduce the meeting participants who are online right now. First, we have Carl Schwartz, BAR chair. We're also joined by Tim Moore, Sherry Lewis, Jody Lehendro, James Zemer, Robert Edwards, and Ron Bailey. Members Andy McClure and Brett Gastinger aren't able to join us this evening. We're also joined by Jeff Werner, my colleague and city staff. And throughout the meeting, applicants and other participants will join the meeting as necessary. For members of the public who are on the call right now who are hoping to provide public comment, there are several places in the agenda where you can speak. At the beginning of the meeting, we allow time for comments from the public for items not on the agenda. Then, before the BAR deliberates on each individual application, we allow time for public comment as well. In order to provide comment, we ask that you register for the meeting if you haven't already, and you can do this through the city calendar. And then you'll become an attendee. And when we get to the comment portion of the agenda, you can raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and I will unmute you. Then the timer will begin and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. For applicants who are currently online already, you are currently in the meeting as an attendee, which means that you have limited audio and video capabilities. When your project comes up on the agenda for review, I will promote you to panelist, so you'll have mute and unmute capabilities, and we can see you. When I promote you from attendee to panelist, you'll be booted out of the meeting temporarily, and then you'll automatically come back in as panelist. Also for applicants, during the staff and applicant presentations for each project, I will be sharing my screen to scan through pages of the application that you submitted for visual aid. While the BAR deliberates, I'm happy to share my screen again to reference specific pages or drawings. Just please give me a page number to go to, and I will go there. Also, like we've done for past meetings, we will have short periodic breaks as necessary, and our chair, Carl, will direct us when a break is necessary. With that being said, I can pass things over to our chair, but please feel free to ask me any other questions as the meeting goes on. Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone to this regular monthly meeting of the Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review. Staff will introduce each item, followed by the applicant's presentation, which should not exceed 10 minutes. I will then ask for questions from the public, followed by questions from the BAR. After questions are closed, I'll ask for comments from the public. For each application, members of the public are each allowed 3 minutes to ask questions and 3 minutes to offer comments. Speakers shall identify themselves and provide their address. Comments should be limited to our purview, that is, regarding only the exterior aspects of a project. Following the BAR's discussion and prior to taking action, the applicant will have up to 3 minutes to respond. Thank you for participating. So now we have matters from the public not on the agenda. Also, if you have any comments on an item that is on the consent agenda, now is the time to make those comments. Please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 if you would like to speak.
Carl, we have 9 attendees in the queue right now, and I don't see any raised hands.
And Robert, I'm sorry. Lost my phone.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I just make clear that if the folks that on the other projects wish to speak that were on the consent agenda, we're going to be pulling those and they can talk then. Just so we're clear.
Yes, I know that, for instance, for 5 Gildersleeve, the applicant had raised their hand, but it seems like the BAR is going to pull that from the consent agenda, and then the applicant will have the time to speak then
Okay, good.
for this project. Yeah.
All right, so now we have the consent agenda, which includes minutes from February 17th, 2021, 605 East Market Street, 5 Gildersleeve Wood, and 201 First Street North. I would like to pull 201 First Street North to discuss that a little bit.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull 5 Gildersleeve Wood, please.
Okay. Anyone else want to pull anything, or would someone like to make a motion to approve what remains?
So moved.
Sounds good.
I was trying to find my unmute button.
Okay, was that a second from Tim or Jody?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I can call a vote then. Mr. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Miss Lewis,
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you. The consent agenda with the 2 items pulled passes unanimously. So the first consent agenda item we'll go to will be 5 Gildersleeve. I think that comes first in the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and promote Darren Bader, who's the applicant for this project.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, my screen was all. Robert, you were just a tiny square in the corner. Find that. So very quickly, I'll introduce it. We did discuss this a moment ago. So this is a COA request for 5 Gildersleeve Wood. This is a house constructed circa 1921 in the Oakhurst Gildersleeve ADC district. It is a contributing structure. The upper floor windows were replaced sometime in the 80s. The applicant's looking to install new sash that is more appropriate to the period, and it offered a similar property over on Thompson Road, which has similar light arrangement. We had recommended, obviously, for the consent agenda, but there was some questions about the alignment of the meeting rail, and I think the applicant was on the line, probably heard most of that. So I'll stop there and let Carl, you take it from here, and if the applicant has anything to offer. There's Darren.
Yep. Ms. Vader, if you'd like to add anything, please do.
Okay, I just need to unmute myself. Yeah, so I really did try to figure out what is the most appropriate window. I did contact the Historical Society to see if they could find an old photograph of the house with the original windows, and they couldn't do that. We bought the house in 2005, and at the time there was an old garage on the property, quite dilapidated. You know, the roof had fallen in. Both my husband and I have a memory of there being some window sashes in that old garage that had been just sitting, you know, on the ground exposed to rain for a long time. And when we removed the garage, you know, obviously we pulled all that stuff out, and both our memories are that the window sash, the top and the bottom were even, and that there were 6 lights. on top. So that's sort of where our head has been about what would be, what we would want to replace the windows that are in there now with. But that's it.
Thank you. I guess for formality's sake, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
Carl, I don't see any comments.
Okay. Questions from the air? Comments from the public?
Again, Carl, no comments.
Can I go back to questions from
Oh, yep.
VAR?
Mhm.
So the sash that show in the photograph on the first floor, are they original?
Those are original windows, yes.
Okay, so they're 9 or 8/1. Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right, that's all I had for questions.
All right, well, thanks for humoring me, everyone. I guess, yeah, comments. Or James, you want to, James or Jody?
Sure. So, Robert, I don't know if you can pull up, there's one image that shows the rear southeast. There's like one sheet that has 3 photos. There you go. So I'm curious if that, and again, it's on the first floor,
Mhm.
but there's a window in the image labeled rear southeast corner, I guess below the circled window on the right that has the 6 lights over 1 light. Yes, that one. Do you know if that's an original window?
Yes,
too?
all of those windows are original.
Okay. Because and it's tough to know whether they treated the second floor similar to the first.
Yeah.
But I think you heard some of the discussion in the pre-meeting where I was going with this, which, you know, the example of the neighboring house on Thompson Street, where the meeting rails on the first floor were right in the middle of the window, and therefore staying on the second floor. In this case, you know, the meeting rail is sort of 2/3 of the way up on the first floor. And I just, you know, it may be where we don't have any evidence to guide us one way or the other, but I just felt like it was worth maybe batting around as a quick discussion. You know, like I said, I'm supportive of replacing the windows. I'm not going to say no, but Jody, I'd love to hear your take on it and what your thoughts are.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So my take on it is that the larger pane of glass is was a more expensive feature at that time, and putting it on the bottom sash on the first floor, the main floor, is entirely appropriate because it would show off the house and it would be a more expensive feature, and provide uninterrupted light and views.
Mhm.
So for the second floor, I would expect it not to have the 1/1s. I would expect it to be a 6/6 or something more reasonable for the time. You know, it'd been a divided sash, and probably not. You know, the reason the first floor is divided like it is with the smaller upper sash is just, again, to show off that full pane of glass, and show how rich these people were, right?
I think also the meeting rail doesn't block your view either, you know, when you're looking out the window.
Exactly. So for the second floor, I would expect a less expensive treatment. So a more common 6/6 would be, you know, perfectly appropriate.
What they're proposing is a 6/1.
Ah,
I think in kind of the spirit of the Thompson Road, go down a little bit, Robert, and the second picture's clearer.
okay. Well, that makes sense too.
So my main question was just really the position of the meeting rail.
Of the meeting rail, I
Yes.
think that's probably a greater expense than they would do for the upstairs.
Okay.
That's my
So-
personal opinion. So there that's a 4/1. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they got a 6/1 on the
6/1.
second floor.
I'm sorry. It's a 9/1 for the second floor. on that one.
On that one, you're right.
Yeah. So 6/1, I'm good with that, or 6/6
Sure.
for the top four.
And
Or-
I'm happy to do either. You tell me.
Yeah, I wanted to explore whether, again, it was really just that position, that meeting rail, and I'm happy and fine with approving this application as submitted. So, but I appreciate your patience as we talk through it. and it was really to see if, yeah, maybe if y'all did have, if some of those earlier sessions survived, and if that, provided some evidence. But if there's nothing that we have that can point us exactly to the right answer, then I'm happy to move. I'll move to approve the submittal.
Second.
Do I need to read the spiel, Carl?
Oh,
Probably.
All right. Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the ADC district design guidelines, I move to find the proposed window replacements for 5 Gildersleeve Wood satisfy the BAR's criteria and are compatible with this property and other properties in the Oakhurst Gildersleeve ADC district, and that the BAR approves the application as submitted.
Second.
Thank you, Tim. I'll call a vote. Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Zemer,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Miss Lewis,
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for
Thank
doing
you
that.
very much.
So the next consent agenda item that was pulled is 201 First Street North. So I'm going to promote Tess Willits, who I think is associated with the funeral home.
Here's Tess. Tess, did you hear? I'm sorry. Is she muted, Robert, or you have her muted?
She's joined. She might still be kind of orienting.
Right. I just wondered if she had heard what the discussion earlier. But just quickly, I'll introduce the project, and then we can talk about it. So this is a COA request for 201 First Street North. This is the Hill and Wood Funeral Home there on the corner with Market Street. The structure was constructed in 1937, originally as a funeral home, the Hill and Irving Funeral Home at that time. It is in the downtown ADC district, and it is a contributing structure to late colonial revival with Georgian motifs. And it's the applicant has requested there are 2 low bollards on that east entrance into the home, and to replace those with taller pole-mounted fixtures. Staff had recommended approval with conditions related to the lamping. Earlier conversation with BAR asked about possibly selecting a fixture that has a shielded top relative to night lighting concerns. So with that, Tess, you can, or maybe the BAR, Tess is there, BAR, you can express and have a conversation with Tess, see how that goes. Carl?
Yeah, Ms. Willits, did you have anything to add, or we can just kind of go right into a conversation?
I apologize. I had to go and unmute my microphone, so I missed a little part of that, but feel free to start conversing.
Thank you. And again, just for formality's sake, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands, Carl.
Thank you. So questions from the BAR? And I'll go ahead and start since this was my thing. Do you guys have any concerns with a lamp that would have a shielded top similar to the wall sconces that you have on your building currently?
So I think with that, we were unable to find something that matched better than the ones with the glass top. For as far as it's not really an acorn, but whatever that shape of the glass itself is.
Mhm.
The sconces, I guess they no longer make that specific one, so we were trying to find something similar. So with the glass top, that was pretty much just, it matches the bell of the glass itself. And we thought that maybe it would just emit more light, which would be maybe kind of an added safety.
Is that the reason for the upgrade?
So we would like to put the pole lights in general because we have small walk lights
Mhm.
that are up a little bit, and they no longer work properly. You can kind of move them around. We just wanted to upgrade the building's appearance itself and thought that that would just bring added light. It would be less likely for if we got a taller pole light, then it'd be less likely for it to have any damage or easily damaged.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments from the public? Oh, sorry.
It's just not totally clear exactly where it's located, where they're being located. Are they going where the bollards are right now? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Exactly there?
Yeah, we would have just replace those two small lights that we have currently.
Got it.
Comments from the public, please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands, Carl.
Okay. Comments from the board. Yeah, my concern was mostly with the dark sky ordinance, and I think because it's a residential style fixture, it meets our zoning code, but it's always preferable if we can have a shield on top. But if you're telling me that you can't find anything that was matching well, I guess I don't know. Does anyone else share my concern?
Well, actually, I sort of do. My inclination would be to say that I think it'd be better to use a modern pole light that's strictly got a downlight component, is up reasonably high, so it just washes that immediate area, but not with really bright light. But the point being that I think this light will actually compete with the lights that are in front of the building, actually on the building, right? Because it's sort of mimicking them. Whereas if you do something that's a little more up in the trees and just, basically provides a very low level of area lighting, I think that'd be more effective than something that's just another object. Seems like it competes with the lights that are already on the building, to my mind. I would have said that the bollards, in terms of the step and all that, are putting the light exactly where it belongs.
With the light itself, the light will be about 8 feet off of the sidewalk. So it'll be a little more than 7 feet off of the step itself.
Right.
So it's not going to be the same level as the sconces on the side of the building. So it wouldn't be all the lights in one line.
Right. I'm just thinking is I think it kind of competes with them. That's all. Which is the sort of the issue with having them very similar.
Since they're not super tall lights, we just didn't want a whole different style, because we wanted something that would be not low to the ground, but.
Right. So, well, I guess the question I guess I would have is, as far as the lights low to the ground, are they not getting? I mean, they're not getting enough light to the steps going into the onto the little podium there. Am I correct?
Well, those I believe were installed probably in the 70s, and so they aren't very bright. I don't know that they even work. And so since we wanted to make that area more illuminated anyway, we just thought we would upgrade and take them off of. We have to replace those lights regardless. So if we get something
that I totally understand. I'm just
okay.
I'm just thinking more about what's the more effective way to, I mean, are there any lights in the canopy or not?
There is one light in the canopy, and then we have the 2 sconces on at the
Right.
front door.
Which
And then we have
aren't
some of the
really-
lights on either side of the chapel doors,
Right,
but there's nothing over the sidewalk. So if people are coming by in the evening or in the winter when it's dark, the stairs are not very well illuminated.
got it. It still seems like some sort of a downlight would be preferable to me than something that throws light all over the place. And
And I don't mind continuing to look for a shield, but to match the base of that light, that was the only one that I was able to find
I understand
that
that.
was the correct size wise, because you can find some from Lowe's, but they're the ones that hang outside of your back door, like the really
Right.
tiny. So it's
Yeah.
not as easy as I thought it would be, to be honest.
No, it's very hard to find anything that matches anything.
Exactly.
That's pretty
Especially if
much-
there's been any time.
Right, right. I mean, I don't know that there's that much of an uplight component. I just don't know. I mean, let's see, is there a cut sheet on this guy? Let's see. Hang on a minute.
Page 54 has, I think, the most of the technical information that comes with it.
Right.
So it's 3 60-watt bulbs. Now, I mean, theoretically, you guys could insert a 60-watt LED in there, and it would be, you know, look like the sun is sitting out in front of your building. I don't think that's your intention. I imagine you want this to be kind of gently lit.
Right.
And I mean, I totally understand the idea that, I mean, this is kind of it's a decorative thing too for you guys. I assume that it's, you know, you're getting light, but you're also kind of upgrading the appearance of the fixtures. So I don't want to step on your toes in that sense. I mean, I think Tim's right that, you know, for better light quality, you know, a modern downlight would work, but it doesn't sound like what you guys are aesthetically after. Yeah, I mean, I would love it if you could, well, you said, I trust that you have searched. So I guess it's, I don't know.
Well, we even reached out to, I think Ferguson, they did most of our lighting before.
Mhm.
So we've tried to go through old vendors that we've used, but just, it's not really the style anymore. So it's a challenge.
I obviously don't want to spend your money, but did y'all consider replacing the sconce lights as well? And then you could have a set that matches.
So we also have lights along the back wall in our parking lot, and we have lights on the other end of the parking lot as well, and they are all the same.
Okay, gotcha.
Because that's sconce. Right.
Well, we have the 2 sconces, but then we have other pole lights that were affixed years and years ago along the back wall of our parking lot. So trying to, if we change the sconces,
So do they
then we have
match
to
the
change
sconce?
all.
Do they match the
yes,
sconces?
They do.
So here's a thought. What about moving 2 of those over to your front and then putting, you know, down, I'd have to see the ones in the parking lot, but I mean, how well do they light the parking lot?
They're a smaller fixture. So
Ah.
those would be too small to put, because they're kind of at eye level as they sit where
Okay.
the back
Yeah,
of
no, that
the
doesn't work.
parking lot
That
is.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right,
I thought that too, and was like, oh, we can shift some things around, but how, it wouldn't look the way we would like it to look in the end.
Right, right.
I feel like I've opened Pandora's box. I am going to make a motion actually just to approve this because I think it sounds like you've done your homework and it's you meet the zoning code. So even though this was my problem with the uplight, if I can find the motion. All right, having considered the standards set forth in the city code, including ADC district design guidelines, I move to find the proposed light fixture at 201 First Street North satisfies the Bay Area's criteria and is compatible, and are compatible with this property and other properties in the West Main Street ADC district. The BAR approves the application as submitted with the condition that the selected lamping is dimmable has a color temperature not to exceed 3000 Kelvin, and has a color rendering index of not less than 80, preferably not less than 90. You'll have no problem getting those if you use incandescent or, you can find those even on LED bulbs, you can find those requirements easily.
They have their also candelabra bulbs now that look almost like a tungsten filament, only it's actually LED.
Basically, we want them to be a warm color, not blue. If
Oh,
that,
yes, no,
okay.
Not
No
blue
blue lights. No,
not
no.
too- and not too bright.
no, not at all.
Yeah, I second the motion.
Ron.
Second.
Thank you, Ron. I will call a vote. Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Willits.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is the mural for 1001 West Main Street. I see Alan Gafensky has joined us, so I will promote him. And then there might be other people, but I can figure out who to add in a moment. Maybe Laura Bennett. I'll promote her as well.
So, excuse me a second. This is a COA request for 1001 West Main Street. Formerly, I think, been the Pizza Hut. The request is for a mural to be painted on the east side of the building, which is the facade that's facing 10th Street. This is a non-contributing structure in the West Main Street ADC district, originally constructed around 1920 with changes over time. It is a remnant of West Main's 20th century autocentric history, which makes it kind of interesting. There is, let's see, yeah. So it had been a service station. You all have reviewed several things at this as related to the Starbucks, the proposed Starbucks, which is planning to come in here. So you all have reviewed some alterations to the front storefront and various things. I think change in the parking lot, canopy over the front door. So, but all of those have been okayed, and I just want to know that while some of those are shown on the information that was submitted, the only thing that you are reviewing is the request for the painted mural. Staff, for the staff report, we've recommended approval, and with that, I'll hand it off to Alan and Mr. Schwartz.
Alan, if you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to speak to this project a little bit. My name is Alan. I'm with the Charlottesville Mural Project. I'm pleased that we get to join alongside in proposing this brilliant new mural on a non-primary cinder block facade at this location. This collaborative artwork, this original collaborative artwork by Hamilton Glass and Jay Johnson, we believe will transform an architecturally unremarkable wall by imbuing it with a sense of color and motion that enhances the existing character of the area. The mural incorporates perspectives shared by the 10th and Page Neighborhood Association and other residents, chiefly among them being the inclusion of a local artist and that artist's perspective in its creation. The artwork itself is a striking and relevant complement to the existing visual landscape of public art in the immediate vicinity as well. And the flow of the design is very deliberate in how it tactfully accounts for the windows and the architectural elements while complementing both the energy of West Main Street and the warmth and vibrancy and the neighborliness the artists both seek to celebrate in the adjacent 10th and Page community. In adherence with the BAR guidelines, the design is contained to portions of only one wall, assuring it doesn't alter or distort the perceived geometry of the building. And we at the Charlottesville Mural Project look forward to closely working with both of these esteemed artists to assure the successful creation of what we believe will be an iconic original work of art for our city going into the future. The artists that are involved, Hamilton Glass and Jay Johnson. Jay is an emerging muralist here in Charlottesville who we've worked with on numerous projects, including the Charlottesville Albemarle Technical Education Center, UVA Health, and a project with UVA Athletics. He specializes in creating dynamic portraiture and figure drawing. He's exhibited artwork in various galleries throughout town, and has done artwork, community-based artwork with a lot of organizations and initiatives throughout Charlottesville. And we are pleased to pair him with Hamilton Glass, who is a very prolific and distinguished muralist in Central Virginia, with a very robust history of collaboration with artists and organizations across the country, including here in Charlottesville as well, with projects that have included collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club, the Wounded Warrior Project, and several projects with the Mural Project in the past. His career in art stems from his architectural and design background. Despite working in the architecture field for 7 years, his passion for public art pushed him to start out as a career artist. Public art has always been a big inspiration of his because of its power to influence and inspire surrounding communities. And with every project he is given to create, he strives to build in a message that connects the work to the community in which he lives, which the artwork will live. Pairing up Hamilton Glass with Jay Johnson in this project was something that both artists embraced very enthusiastically, and something that's been a real joy to watch come together, as Jay has sort of used his connection with the community and his deep knowledge and history growing up in the 10th and Page community, and his connections to his neighbors and his family who have lived in that community for generations, to create this what I personally think is a really beautiful and warm and exciting piece of artwork. Thank you.
Hi, is it possible to add something?
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. My name is Lara Bennett. I lead the global art program for Starbucks, and I've had the great privilege of personally kind of like working on this project directly. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for introducing us to Alan and his organization. And we've been so thrilled to be working with Jay and with Hamilton. They're both so talented and such good spirits, and have worked really fast to get together what is, I think, just such a successful and joyful piece. And, President Schwartz, I heard that, I think I heard earlier that you were worried that we hadn't taken it to the community board. We were like literally down to the hour to get this to you guys to get to review, but that would be our next step. And we're just really hoping that we've done the right thing, because I don't know, I'm really excited about this project. And there are a lot of people at Starbucks attached to this. There's a lot of attention going into this project, but we've run this all the way up, and very senior executives are very excited about this. So we hope you will love it and feel like we've done the right thing
here. I can't speak for the neighborhood, but I think you guys have, you picked Jay Johnson to be the artist, or one of the artists, and he's, he lives 2 doors down from me. I think it should be well received.
Oh, good. He's so great. We've loved it.
Yeah, I'll also say Jay is a personal friend of mine as well, and he's someone who I've seen a lot of potential in for a long time, and it's something that I always love to do is see a muralist or an artist expand their skills and have their toolkit expanded to take on bigger and broader projects. So you know, in a sort of selfish sense, I'm really excited about this as well in that regard.
Yeah, and it really aligns with how we approach artwork and why we do it we do at Starbucks. So like, we hope this like helps Jay's career a lot.
Well, thank you guys. All right, now the formal part. Are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see, no, yeah.
Questions from the board? It's nodding heads. So comments from the public, please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any, Carl.
Any comments from the board?
I guess I would just say I'm glad to see that you know, after some of the teething problems we had with murals to begin with, that you know that people seem to be honing in on solutions and ideas that do seem to respect the buildings and also have a life of their own, and I think it's great.
Yeah, we're not really supposed to comment on content, but I mean, it's it certainly meets our guidelines as far as, you know, yeah, not obscuring the building. I think it's I mean, personally, I think it's pretty great.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
All right.
Or would entertain one. Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the ADC district design guidelines, I move to find the proposed mural at 1001 West Main Street satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in the West Main ADC district, and that the BAR approves the application as it was submitted.
Second.
Thank you. I'll call a vote. Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Miss Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
So Alan, we've got a little underpass in 10th and Page under the railroad that seems to be screaming for a new mural.
Is
Just,
that
I'm gonna toss that out there.
is that the one with the paint swirls on it right now?
Yeah, starting
Yeah.
to heal and
You know, if you want to help me get in contact with the railroad company, they're the most difficult people to work with. But I won't rule it out.
all right.
How about
Nighttime mural. I probably shouldn't say that on live.
Well, I think that's also right next to the public park too, or the 10th and Page Park that's opening. So
Right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Maybe we can find a solution.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next application is 1511 University Avenue. Abigail Arnold, I think, is representing that project, and I will promote her.
Yeah, Carl, I think Alan has a map of every you know, surface in the city that it take paint. So you know, I'm sure he knows what's out there. Wish I could just say, hey, can you paint a mural on my house that's just the same gray color entirely that is on it now. All right, let me find the next page. All right, excuse me. This is a COA request for 1511 University Avenue, otherwise known as the former College Inn. In the corner, it is in the corner ADC district, and it is a contributing structure. It was constructed in 1930 as a men's clothing store, a single-story brick building. It has an Art Deco storefront, which has, of course, been modified over time, but portions of it still remain, and they're subtle. Primarily, you've got the the sunburst tracery window on the west side, which we've discussed earlier, and we'll be talking about. There's inset brick bands. There's a black glass corner blocks, and the inset brick panels at the corner piers. This has only come to the BAR one other time, back 2015, when the current storefront that you see was installed. Excuse me. The applicants requested COA for alterations to the exterior elevations, and I say that all four sides, front, back, rear, and this will include new signage, new furnishings and railings at the outdoor cafe area. And also, when I mentioned signage, I did check with zoning, and as you know, all signage requires a separate signage permit. So even though the BAR may approve a design, that's not an approval of a sign permit. So, but what's been proposed does fit within the signing regs. Then the applicant provided a narrative, which is in the staff report, and there's a couple things that as I mentioned, staff recommends approval. However, there are a few questions we suggest the BAR discuss further. One being the storefront. The applicant has indicated the light will have a VLT of not less than 70%, but I also let them know that we have had some, we understand that, particularly for a south-facing facade, there may be some adjustment that can be made, and if they had a question on that, to bring it up tonight. Otherwise, to state that they'll follow that, I don't want them to have to come back later. So if they've got some thoughts there, you can discuss it. The windows, there's four small high windows along the west facade. The idea is to reglaze those. They're single light. There's some question about what type of glass. Want something that's possibly a dark or a gray, and I think the applicant can address that. The Art Deco window, again, signage I talked about. Patio furniture, everything's fine relative to the conditions, or as relative to the guidelines. The only thing I've added is a recommendation of a condition that any umbrellas be a uniform color and that no signage or logos are allowed on the umbrellas. Masonry, there's some notes there about the applicant has added that the brick will be cleaned, which is fine. Just want to make that clear that no abrasive chemicals or high pressure washing is used. And also that prior to after they clean it, that the wall should be properly pointed up and repaired before anything additional is done to it. They had mentioned a use of a waterproofing to seal the bricks. The guidelines recommend against that. So I asked the applicant if they had something they wanted to use to have a specification that they could bring forward. Also, there's a note in the drawings about the brick being painted, and so there's a conflicting note there. So I think make sure we resolve that. And then then there's some masonry infill there at the back. This is at the far rear of that western wall. And this is where I think they had suggested painting simply because to make sure maybe the brick didn't match or course out. And I had suggested that they not worry about trying to match the brick. I mean, obviously you don't want something that's blue or green, but that they could set the new brick inset into the wall. So everyone knows that it's added, and then maybe that omits the need to paint it, to hide it. Again, we're not trying to make it look like it's always been there. We understand that the walls changed and the openings changed, so it doesn't have to be hidden or concealed. The lighting, I did ask for lighting cut sheets on the sign lighting on the front of the store. In the absence of that, standard recommendation relative to lamping. And then noted about the mechanical equipment. And then the last condition, of course, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, but the one of is just the removal of, there's a lot of wires and stuff that's telephone services, conduits that are no longer in use or functioning, or if they are no longer in use or functioning, that they recommend that they be removed. I'll just caveat by saying, I know sometimes there are some traces of early electrical service, and I know I'm kind of a nostalgic about some of those things. There's a big ceramic insulator on the side of the building. Maybe that stays, but I think when I see a building that has lots of cable and TV cable and old phone wires, that those can be removed. So I just wanted to caveat that if there are, and I think you'll see it in the photographs, there's some elements that maybe you all would prefer to see retained. With that, again, staff's recommended approval with the clarifications and conditions that I've outlined, and with that, I'll pass it off. I think is Abby on the line, or is she there? There you go.
I am
Nice
here.
to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I mean, you covered it. I'm working with Chipotle to take over the space. We're going to occupy it, renovate it, make it look clean again, and embrace the history in the area. Embrace those, preserve that window, that Art Deco window is real important, and just respect all that's going on already. But then at the same time, try to give a little bit of an update so we get our branding in there. And so we just add a little liveliness to that, especially with the neighboring tenant that's already modernized right next to us a little bit. Yeah, the storefront is a big one. Kind of respecting the same path the old storefront was. And then repairing the Art Deco, we've talked about that one. On the signage band, we're looking to maybe swap the colors a little bit, but do like a metal back with the pattern, like the wood pattern is, and then white letters, just to kind of make everything pop. It already has the white trim around everything, so that will match too. And then, of course, the blade sign that's there historically, we'll do ours there. And then, yeah, the patio, we'll update patio furniture and railing with our prototypical look, which is a charcoal color. I think that covers it.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands.
All right, questions from the board? I will start then, since no one else is going to. The area that you were proposing to paint, it looks like the building steps a couple times along that alleyway. Is it just kind of that last final step that you were painting, or where's it start and stop?
Yeah, so the paint we are looking at would be where, well, one, if you are not interested in us painting brick, we're good with that, but
Okay.
we're looking at the final step back of the brick. That's what we discussed in this. And then after that, the CMU beyond. But we'd be open to not painting that brick and getting the best match we can. You could probably see it in the page 4 or page 1. So page 1, there's like where the white boxes are on the left side. Yeah, so that's where we're going to infill all that. But we'll try to match what the brick is there and the mortar to make it look as matchy as possible. There's still some, you can already kind of see some remnants of infill previously. So I think we can do a pretty good job without having to paint.
Okay.
But then we look at painting the CMU on the backside and around the corner.
Mm-hmm. And the alley wall where you've got all the green algae and whatnot. Have you guys looked at, I mean, would it help to just extend the scuppers out a little bit?
Well, we thought about that, but then that alley's so narrow, any truck that's going down, and you can kind of see that they've already been hit more than once.
Mhm.
That was one of our discussion ideas, but we just don't think it's a good, actual viable one.
Oh, the scuppers have been hit?
Yeah, you could see, I don't know if I have a good picture of
I
them.
didn't
You
catch
can
that,
see
okay.
they've been chipped off. Something happened.
Wow.
I mean, I guess it could be something other than a car, but I would assume it's a car.
Okay. Huh. Well, there goes that idea.
I had a good idea. I was like, oh, we could run a pipe down and get it to this, but I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like it just needs a better drip on the end because the water when it was coming out just instantly tucked back against the wall. And I don't know if there's.
There
I don't
could be
know.
maybe a low profile tongue or something
Mhm.
like cow's tongue. I haven't looked into that. We could look into that.
Okay. Other questions?
So, Abigail, Jeff had a couple of issues or a few things that he mentioned in his report. I'm wondering what your response is to things like waterproofing the brick, what the waterproofing material is, and the fact that it shouldn't be a waterproofing material, it should be water resistant material, something that's breathable.
Yeah, I hadn't planned the detail for that yet, but definitely fine to not waterproof it, and that makes sense. You don't want to get it all stuck in the brick itself since it's permeable.
But
So
the waterproofing ends up
inside,
capturing water that invariably gets into a wall behind the waterproofing and then starts to spoil the brick. So
yeah, totally.
something that's permeable, breathable, not that doesn't allow water in, but it's breathable.
Okay.
They do make such products.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, and we're very open to that. That's no problem.
Good. The Art Deco window, that is a focus of ours because it's one of the few really nice things that have been left behind that have a nice or that's a decorative feature, an important feature. The assessment that it needs to be replaced, who made that assessment? And is there, we would want to be really sure that it has to be replaced before we would agree to replace it. So is that still, is it still possible to have it investigated by a professional and to see that if it can't be preserved, if anything taken out, repaired and put back, and hopefully have the paint stripped off the glass?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my gut judgment was that it would be removed. I didn't really think to look in and get the professional. But yeah, we're down to do that. We'll get a professional out and investigate it, see what the best solutions are, do our best to preserve and keep what we can before going to the replacement route.
Excellent. And if there are people, there are craftsmen in the area that work on metal and have done restoration work. So that it's harder. It's not as straightforward or as easy to understand as carpentry, but they are available. So let us know if you need any references.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I was also worried about the paint with the glass, but we can find out what happens when we start getting it off. So
let's do some testing on it and see if it's possible to keep it. So that would be probably a condition of ours that we try to preserve and restore that that Art Deco window rather than replace.
Okay.
I forget we already talked about painting the brick and I think that was discussed and resolved. Robert, Mr. Watkins, were there other things that Jeff brought up in his report that we should cover?
No, I don't think so. I think we could move on to comments unless there are any other questions.
Yeah, I've got one. I do have a question. On the rear portion of the building, alley side, where those infill panels are, it looks like those have like a concrete sill maybe, and then it's plywood. Were those originally windows? Do you have a sense? What's behind the plywood, I guess?
When we were there, it looks like nothing, like a gyp plywood, like they have issues with leakage already in that area. I didn't see anything other, maybe, wood studs.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can always ask more questions. Are there any comments from the public? Please, it looks like we do have a hand raised.
Yeah, this is from Melissa Sturgeon-Smith. I know that she emailed the board about 905 Rugby Road, but I will go ahead and allow her to talk. Miss Smith, Miss Sturgeon-Smith, you'll need to unmute yourself now. Hi,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Did you have a comment?
Oh, no, not, I'm sorry. Dear.
Yeah, Melissa was, and she just emailed me, she's having difficulty getting connected relative to 901 Rugby Road, but
okay.
Melissa, I'm sending you a quick note. But I don't know, Robert, if when you get to 905, you can figure out from your command and control center there. might help her out.
Okay. So Ms. Smith, if it's all right with you, I will mute you and then we'll bring you back into the meeting when 905 Rugby comes up, if that's okay with you.
That sounds perfect. Thank you.
Ooh, Robert, hopefully you can bring her in from outer space.
I don't want her image to come up. God knows where she is. Yeah. Hey, just quickly also, I did put a note in there. I thought I had. Oh yeah. I was curious too about that front signage board, what it might cover. So I had just made a note that, and simply for curatorial purposes, if when that's open, Abby, we can, I don't know, I'll send Jody over with his phone camera or whoever's closest.
Right. Coordinate that it gets recorded in your documentation. Yeah. I saw that note.
I know there's probably going to be a lot of Wahoo alum out there, chained to the College Inn when all this starts to go down. So then I think a few of them may be on this Zoom meeting. So maybe that'll get taken care of for us. But so that's all. I just want to make sure I added that, and
are there any other comments from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9. Don't see any. So, all right, comments from the board.
Yes, I guess Jody's kind of already covered the Art Deco window. I think just echo his support of that in terms of preservation approach as a first step. And then I did want to talk a little bit about the infill on that rear portion of the building on the alley side. So I was actually the project manager for the building directly across the alley. The university manages now. And in doing so, we did a lot of research on the history of these buildings in this area. And there were like a number of different businesses that were actually just accessed directly onto the alley. They didn't have a storefront on University Avenue. And so I do think it's important, especially if that is a true concrete sill below the plywood. I think it's important to preserve that. I think it'd probably be okay to infill that with brick or block or something and then maybe instead of painting all of that wall, just paint the infill to try and just have an echo of those former businesses or entrances onto that alley side.
That's interesting.
That's
Yeah.
Really
understood.
Or at least not. I mean, I think Jeff had mentioned you could recess the brick, or you could
Sure.
just not too thin the brick, but make it evident that there was. Well, James, that's a interesting idea. Just painting the new or the infill.
Yeah. Because we, you know, as y'all have heard me say, it is in our guidelines not to paint unpainted masonry, but if it's new masonry infill, I think you could argue that you could paint that to set it apart from the original building fabric. And then again, just making sure if it's in good condition, hopefully preserving that still.
Okay, yeah, got that down.
Because that also, you know, it lets it be reversible where, you know, 50 years down the road or whatever, the College Inn wants to come back, they can open it back up again.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I wouldn't be opposed. I think the rear elevation facing the parking lot is painted. So obviously for maintenance purposes, if that wants to get painted, I wouldn't object to that. Robert, I sent you an email with a couple historic photos from the parking lot that you're welcome to share with Abigail if you'd like, or those stuff if you wanted to. But.
I'll share them right now, and then I'll forward the email to Abigail.
Great. And Jeff, I don't know if you looked at Sanborn maps, but when we were doing the building across the alley, using Sanborn maps actually helped us learn what businesses were in, you know, in the basement at 1515 and things like that. So that might also add to the history of this particular building.
This is really cool to see these pictures.
But you can see the across the alley how some of those were infilled bays.
Yeah, it's so curious because the back end is definitely separate and, you know, just from the structure of it and everything. So
right.
That's cool to see for sure.
I'll forward that email to you, Abigail.
Thanks.
Surprised that little wood shed is there in that picture, which I noticed.
You guys
there's a Western
have
sign
watched
on.
the video, right? The parking attendant video. I assume you all know about it.
So how do we get that little shed? Yeah, how do we get that shed as a contributing structure to the Corner Historic District?
So moved. I guess since we opened the door on that, Abigail, the owner, Terry Vasalos, owns the parking lot back there. So is that shed part of the application, and what do you plan to do with it?
Not ours to touch as far as Chipotle, my client, was concerned. So that would be Terry. Something we'd have to discuss with him, or he'd bring up to us. But I do think that would be interesting. It's just a plywood box right now, so.
And sort of along the same nostalgic discussion, I'll bet you could auction off the College Inn sign as soon as you take it down. Put it on Twitter for noon someday, and the alums will come flocking. Right. Quiet summer day in UVA, that, you know, in Charlottesville, that'll be like the hottest thing going on.
All right, good to know. I'll put that auction sign in my drawings.
You have nothing else to do on this project.
Well, it'll be how you can pay for restoring that window.
That's right.
Abby, did you, and when you and I talked earlier about finding some drawings, when you spoke with the architect that worked on previously, have you come across any original drawings of the building? We're starting to kind of build a database of who are the architects of these more contemporary buildings around the city.
I just had what I got from you, and it wasn't much.
Okay.
It'll be interesting what we find out as we get in there too, how it's really built and everything. So.
Did you so the little windows that you're putting spandrel glass in, is that just going to be black glass? Is it going to be, was there a thought on what that's
so we've discussed a couple, like on the Art Deco window, is that all gray glass? for sure, or black? Is that something you guys, I know it's spandrel. I know in history it's been opaque. I don't know if that's I mean, obviously if we're restoring it, it is going to be what it is when I take the paint off.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, you've got what is it? Those, you call them glass block. I don't know what that on the corner.
The Carrera glass block. It's in
yeah.
your little history.
Right.
Yeah. So those are spandrel too. It's like structural glass before spandrel. That was the. So nonetheless, what we put down on the floor could be gray or black. We kind of discussed what if we did something fun, but they're so small, and if we're not doing much else there, I don't know if we do like a color or something. But definitely it needs to be opaque. So I would assume a dark gray at this point.
Okay. I think we've touched on everything. So we need to find Jeff's motion so I can make sure we did. All right, so yeah, Jeff has the removal of any unused exterior wires, lamping of the lighting, need to see light fixture cut sheets submitted to staff, that the umbrellas will be a uniform color without signage, and then photographing existing conditions. Jeff, you didn't put a lot in there. I thought you had the, so the masonry, I guess we need to know what product you intend to use if you want to seal it,
right,
or if you can find a solution that keeps the water off, that might be better. Sounds like we would prefer you didn't paint the that back portion, but if you wanted to recess or paint the infill of those openings, that would be appropriate. And painting the center block, I don't think anybody had a problem with that. Okay.
I would just say, I think they should recess it, not make that optional.
Okay, so
Color's optional, but recess is not optional.
Got it.
And preserve the concrete sills.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? I should have been writing that down as I was saying it.
I got it right here.
Do you want to make a motion on your own project? Probably not. Okay. You guys want me to do this, or does someone want to jump in? All right, I'll do it. Okay, so having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including ADC district design guidelines, I move to find the proposed alterations at 1511 University Avenue satisfy the BAR's criteria and are compatible with this property and other properties in the corner ADC district. And the BAR approves the application, noting that the signage will require a separate sign permit and with the following modifications. We want to remove the starburst window from the application, and so you can study that further for see if it can be repaired. We request that you remove all unused exterior wires, conduits, service boxes, pipes, etc., that are no longer functioning. Lamping for exterior lighting will be dimmable, have a color temperature not to exceed 3000 K, and have a color rendering index not lower than 80, preferably not lower than 90. That you will submit light fixture cut sheets to staff for the BAR record and confirmation that they meet those requirements. That the umbrellas at the cafe space will be a uniform color and without signage or logos. When the front signboard is removed, the existing condition will be photographed and submitted to staff. The infill of the windows should be recessed, and you have the option of painting that. We would like to see a submittal for the whatever brick sealer masonry sealer you intend to use submitted to staff for confirmation that it is breathable, or if you can find another solution that gets the water away from the brick.
And preserving the concrete sills at the infill on the alley side.
Yes, yes.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will call a vote. Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Miss Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Yes, aye.
and Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Abigail.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck with the project.
See, Abby,
I'll
thank
need
you.
it.
Next up. All right, I'm on again.
I'm going to promote Derek Uhler, who's representing the architects for this project.
All right, so this is okay, just all right, I'm scrolling too fast and I jumped all the way to the next one. Here we go. This is a COA request for 905 Rugby Road. This is within the Rugby Road Historic Conservation District. There's an existing 1951 structure on the site. It is non-contributing and will be raised. And to be clear, the BAR does not have purview over demolition of a non-contributing structure. The request is for construction of a two-story residence on the site, including a landscaping plan, and I sent some clarification out to you earlier on the species and some of the existing conditions that are there. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, this is a difficult district to say what's typical. But there are characteristics that are important relative to new designs, and in my review of this, my recommendation is that it be approved, and I also, just to caveat that, and I'm going to read this, the regulations and guidelines for projects within a historic conservation district are by design less rigid than those for an ADC district, or wouldn't that be a property in an ADC district, or for an individually protected property. The historic conservation district designations are intended to preserve the character defining elements of the neighborhoods and to assure that new construction is not inappropriate to that character, while minimally imposing on current residents who may want to build or upgrade their own homes. With the existing historic conservation districts within the existing HCD are buildings and or areas that might easily qualify for an ADC district or as an IPP. However, in evaluating proposals within these districts, the BAR may apply only the requirements and design guidelines for the historic conservation districts. So forgive me for that formality there, but just to make that clear that this is a different level of review than would be for something that's on West Main Street or Park Street. I won't get into all the details in the staff report here. I've addressed the materials. The design is evident. Another thing is that you are reviewing what is visible from the front. So as far as what's going on in the rear of the house, while it's included in the application, it's not under the BAR's purview. I did receive some questions from Ms. Smith, who has called in. If she's unable to, I can address those. Most of her questions were about schedule and accommodations during construction, and I put her in contact with Derek, and they can have that conversation aside from the BAR. There were some questions about the plants along that shared driveway and about drainage. And I thought I think I sent it all out to you, but I can. But if not, we can address them, and you can bring them up with Derek. However, if you wish to discuss them. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Derek. And do you have any questions for me?
So yeah, Derek, I was just going to say, I can share my screen again if you need me to for your application.
As of now, I don't think so. I might ask you to as we go, but yeah, I mean, I think the plan was fairly thorough, and I was the lead designer in conjunction with Water Street Studios, which hopefully everybody is familiar with. And they, I mean, the main directive was trying to make something that looked a lot better than what is there currently. It's in a pretty bad state of disrepair, and she's looking to drastically improve the property. And with that, a pretty comprehensive landscape plan that really improves on what's there. We love the stone wall in the front, would like to, keep that element, really build on that element throughout the project. And I know there was concern raised with tree removal. And if you look at the existing conditions, which I just sent over, I want to apologize about that. I had a PDF issue. I thought that all of that stuff was in the PDF we sent, and come to find out it was only one page, but I did send that to Jeff a couple hours ago. Hopefully he was able to distribute that. But within the existing conditions, you can see there's two large trees that were the main contention. One directly on the eastern border of the property. It is on 905's property, but the root system certainly goes across. It's an ash tree, and we don't believe we can work around that tree or the other large tree, which is a Paulownia on the west side of the house, because for a couple of reasons. One, any kind of construction, we think it's gonna, because of the location of the tree, is gonna negatively impact and most likely kill the tree. And it's just not in a good spot to build around at all, to be able to really do anything else with the property. And then the tree on the other side is actually hanging over the roof of the existing structure, which the footprint of the new structure is very similar, but any kind of construction around that tree as well is going to create an issue. We are saving the 3 dogwood trees along the southwest corner of the property, but which is on the roadside. We'll fence those off for construction to keep those in good shape. But pretty much all the other vegetation on the property would need to be removed to regrade and replant everything that we would like to put back. So, and that's pretty much what I got. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I know that Ms. Sergen-Smith had comments before. I can promote her, or Jeff can convey the comments that she shared. She's not raising her hand right now, though.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe she's waiting for comments as well.
Okay.
Questions from the board? I have a question. Are there any, it looks like on the landscape plan that all of the trees on the site will be small flowering trees. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that is.
Okay.
Based on what they've, and as I said, we've worked with Water Street Studios. And that, of course, happy to listen to recommendations there.
Okay. Just want to confirm that. Okay.
Yeah, did you see the other document that I just got in was the planting schedule, which again I thought was attached, but does you guys all have that now?
Oh shoot, was that, I guess Jeff sent that out, right?
Just probably a couple hours ago. Yeah, I didn't realize, I looked at the comments that Ms. Smith had and realized that a lot of them would be answered with that. So, which told me that I had not submitted that.
I don't know why well, we'll let everyone else move on and I'll make sure I think I opened that if I can find it. Are there comments from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
Again, I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. Would it make sense to read Mrs. Smith's email?
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, if you have it up, you're welcome to do it, or I can do it as well.
I have it. And so, and Mr. Schwartz, I just sent it to you quickly. So there were several questions, and I did respond to Ms. Smith. And so the first question was about the target date for the project. Again, that's a question for the applicant. I think Derek can address that. They asked about removal of trees along the property line and how and when it would be done, et cetera. And that again goes to Derek. They asked about the removal of the existing bamboo grove in the rear, how it would be done, et cetera. Again, question for Derek. I don't know how you remove bamboo. I
thoroughly
gasoline.
Yeah, a lot of digging. I do know if you put it on Craigslist, people will flock over to get rid of it for you. So yeah, Etsy, nice Etsy project.
The question: what plans will replace the existing trees and bamboo and provide a privacy screen? And that's what is in that the clarification in the landscape plan. And what I sent out earlier simply is where Water Street Studio identified the what types of plants. So the plan hasn't changed. It's just is the what is the evergreen, what is the tree. Similar question about what plant is specified for the property line between the driveways. Concern being that to ensure that the normal growth that it won't overgrow into the driveways. The planting lists are identified, but that's probably something for the neighbors to resolve. If a tree or a shrub is growing too large, they need to address that. They asked what change will be made to the grade to accommodate new drive, level out the rear, et cetera, for the parking of cars. I'm looking at what Derek had sent actually earlier, and not today, but and looking at the topography from the city's maps, and so not a whole lot of change there, but I think, relative to drainage into the neighbor's yard, obviously any sort of underground or erosion and sediment control will come with a building permit. There is a question about underground springs. I know we have them all over Charlottesville, but I don't know how to address that. And then the last question, she said about accessibility to their property for any work. Again, that's a question for Derek. So those were the questions that Melissa had, and I hope I've addressed them. But if you all see in any of those something that you want to address, speaking of the VAR, that's up to you all. Does that help? All
right. Yeah, so I guess she's left her contact information, and Jeff, you forwarded that to Derek. So okay.
Yeah, and I will certainly be reaching out about all that stuff. I'd love to meet on site actually and just go over, the whole process. It'd be great.
Great. All right. Well, comments from the board. Okay, I will start since no one else is. So as Jeff said, our guidelines are very, they're much more lax when it comes to historic conservation districts. We do have, there are a couple guidelines in there that are, I think, apply to this. One being front entrances. Let me see if I can find this. Sorry, looking at too many things, but so building openings, a single entrance door or main entrance facing the street is recommended. And I think the way that I read your design, I think is a very nice design, but it's I was confused as to what is the front or the back, and it appears that the front is kind of like a back in a sense. I mean, where I grew up in northern Indiana, there was a big river, and everybody's houses had a you have a river front and you have a driveway front, and you've kind of put like a river front on Rugby Road, if that makes any sense at all. Like it's kind of, it's more of a, it feels like a backyard. And I don't know if anyone else shares that concern. The other, the Martha Jefferson neighborhood asked for large trees in their neighborhood. Rugby didn't ask for much at all. I think there's 3 requirements. They want 1.5, 2, or 2.5 story dwellings. They do mention front porticos or porches. They mentioned slate shingle roofs, gable or hip roof forms, roof dormers, and contributing outbuildings and deep set planted front yards, mostly unpaved with no visible garages. So you have no visible garage. You do have parking in the front yard, but there is precedent for that.
And we tried to sync and visually, with the retainage around it, we're trying to keep the view of cars from the street as limited as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, so one request I would make, and I can only make this as a request, I kind of would beg and plead with you, actually. There's no power lines on your side of the street. It would be fantastic if the owners could put in some street trees, as opposed to having everything be small flowering trees. But that's, I can only make that as a request.
I'll certainly make a note. Yeah, that certainly. So street trees, as in, up against the retaining wall on the yard side. Yep.
Yeah. I imagine whatever's below the retaining wall, although it's grass, is probably not plantable, but yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. And with the root systems could be a big problem. But certainly we would be happy to do that. We have a little bit, but if your comment about, not more mature hardwoods and everything is also noted, because that does seem like a design flaw there for sure.
I mean, even if the entire rest of the yard is all small trees, but just if something up against the street to complete that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And Derek, I would throw in, I think that's a great idea, Carl. I would throw in that just tell Water Street that to check the city's recommended tree guidelines. They know where it is, and there's a listing for the types of trees that are appropriate for Charlottesville that are canopy street trees.
Great. Yeah, I will certainly do that. I'm sorry, I'm making a note here.
So I don't know if anyone else feels any issue with the front porch thing. I know a lot of the houses on Rugby, not a lot, but there's a precedent for not having a front porch, but there is I don't know what, the front door thing, is it just me or is it?
I just don't know which one the mailman's going to go to.
Well, yeah.
But I don't see that it's, against the guidelines.
I mean, I think the front door thing, the guidelines is to make it cool is to it's basically a anti-duplex approach. I think that's the whole reason for it. It wants everything to look like R1. This is just idiosyncratic, and it'll be interesting to see how they eventually address which damn door are we supposed to go in?
Most likely the back.
I mean, you could have, M on one door and W on the other, I suppose, or
Yes.
children, adults.
And to your point
It's a
about
little
that,
idiosyncratic, but I don't think that's a disqualifier. It'll just be interesting to see how they use it, actually.
certainly. And to your point, about some street trees that may help soften the visual of that, the large front looking a little more,
I don't really see that as, to me, it's more an issue of really making that parking area go away, because I think philosophically, in the older neighborhoods, we object to, or at least I object to how zoning works anyway, in terms of, new construction having off-street parking. And you end up with a cut that's as wide as what you just replaced. So, I have a little problem with it philosophically, having the parking in the front of the house. But I think the street trees would go a long way towards alleviating that concern. And as far as the front, it's idiosyncratic, but it's also an individual's house. I don't really have an issue with it at all.
I will note that the back,
Sorry, Ron.
no, I will note that the back also has multiple doors. They've got a lot of doors.
Yeah. I mean, I just think you should have a housewarming party and invite Carl, and I'm just gonna watch and see which door he uses.
everybody will follow.
Ridge party.
I'll just stand on the sidewalk.
Before everybody goes in.
That's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly the trees on the front to soften the whole thing. We definitely I'll get with Eugene over at Water Street and we'll work that out. But I'm sure she would be, the owner, Mrs. Sprinkle, would also be amenable to that, I'm sure. So.
I also don't see it so much as a softening issue, just simply reinforcing the road.
Yeah, certainly. Happy to do that.
The house is pretty gentle, generally speaking, so.
Sherry, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, with all due respect to our esteemed chair, I don't have a problem with the two front doors. In fact, the property that staff has pointed to, 700 Rugby, has two front doors. If you look at it, it's the one that's compared to this, with a significant roof line and sort of the closest that we can get to that. So, and frankly, what is the other one? 714. I've never been able to figure out what the front of that house is every time I go by them. So I don't think that in itself, certainly in a historic conservation district, is fatal. And I think that the Rugby historic neighborhood is represented by a wide variety of architectural types. I don't think that it's just Georgian at all through this neighborhood. And certainly once you get off Rugby, even more, I think you get even more diversity in cottage-like and vernacular and things that, with some age maybe on this house, it'll look like it was of a certain era, when a lot of those really grand and sort of quirky homes were built. So I think it's perfectly compatible with the district.
And I also like the fact that we're not looking at a garage door.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Derek, I'm
Yep.
curious. I'm curious. Where'd you get the inspiration for the swooping ski jump slope? For the roof?
It's an architect. I'm sorry, I actually have it right here. I always forget his name. The owner actually came to us with a pretty firm design in mind, and it was included in that. And it's an architect named Edward. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he does a lot of that same design, or he did, in a turn of the century cottagey feel, in a small. This is relatively small, but his whole style was small homes, making them feel cottagey and cozy with exterior elements with corbels and things like that.
Well, I like it. I like the diversity that it continues to bring to Rugby, and it certainly fits in that way. I was just curious. I don't remember anything else in the neighborhood with that swooping roof.
Yep.
It's sort of-
Very owner driven.
He didn't build small houses, but I think Lutchens sometimes did that, certainly. Any number of English architects played that game, and I think it mimics thatch to a certain extent, or sort of that softness of thatch. Perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of English.
Did Tim identify the architect? Is it Edward Blaisdell from Maine?
That, I believe that's correct, actually. I have his book around here
I can do
somewhere.
quick research, but I found it, I think.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
He was a turn of the century. But I thought Tim would be familiar with them because he's a lot of projects in Maine. But the houses look vaguely reminiscent.
It's sort of an arts and crafts. It's kind of got an arts and crafts background. Yep. But that all ties back to a lot of the English residential architecture from the turn of the century.
Yeah, that's very much what she was looking for.
And there was plenty of idiosyncrasy going on there.
Yes, certainly. Yep. Yeah, we're excited about this one. There were questions about lighting. Jeff and I talked about, and we put notes on our plan, was very clear. 90 CRI, 2700K down lighting, nothing pointing vertically. We're very concerned about that as well. So
a lot of gas lamps.
Yes, a lot. That's the other part of that, turn of the century cottagey feel. So which is, they certainly they'll put out enough light, but not so much that it inhibits any kind of skyline. So, and then there's some soffit lights down that, again, we noted. We don't have the exact specification yet, but we noted everything that within the design criteria.
So where are we right now? Comments or
would anyone like to make a motion?
What are we doing? What?
Would someone like to make a motion? Do you?
Sure.
Okay.
Hang on, let me back up. Okay, just a motion. Okay. Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including city design guidelines for historic conservation districts, I move to find the proposed residence and landscaping on 905 Rugby Road satisfy the BAR's criteria and are compatible with property and other properties in the Rugby Road Historic Conservation District. And the BAR approves the application with the following proviso, and that proviso is that street trees are introduced along Rugby Road so that it reinforces the sense of the road and its residential nature. And on that note, I finish the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. And Mr. Moore, I'll call a vote. Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Zemer.
Aye.
Mr. Lehendro.
Aye.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
And Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Derek. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
Derek,
it.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. That was, I will say, looking at that and trying to fit it with the district was, I don't know, I had asked Robert if he thought my report made any sense, and he didn't respond, so I assumed it must have in some way. But yeah, that was a tricky one. It just, really kind of an interesting look. But then, there's like, the only thing I could find that was sort of similar was that one down the street. But I don't know. I honestly, to be very honest with you, I thought you guys were kind of beat me up on that one. So I'm grateful to you. Quickly, I don't know. As I had mentioned, the applicant for 854 Locust is working on some updates. They have not asked us any questions, so that's been withdrawn from the agenda. I don't believe you have to approve a deferral for that. They sent me a note earlier. And the what else, Robert? Find my right screen. Do we have back up?
Was that one controversial, or was there, did they explain what? Okay.
No, I was in a.
If there's some neighbors that have been upset, or
honestly, it's one that there was one 2 years ago up the street a little bit set back from the road, and the conservation districts allow for small additions and small structures. I could even just, Carl, you confer with you and make a decision. This one was a little more substantial, visible from the road. It's a
no.
It was 50.
I think we should see it. I just was curious.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go to that house used to have a railroad track around it, like a model train track. Like it's about, that, I don't know what the gauge was, but the guy was totally into trains, and that the garage that used to be there was stuffed with train paraphernalia.
Oh, wow. That used to be up. I know there was a big train thing up the street from me here on Park, where next to the church, that old garage set back from the road.
Oh, right. That's a model train. But this guy actually had like an old, not a switch engine, but like an old little maintenance cart, trolley, and hand cart and stuff like that. But then he also had this model train set that was like you could sit on, like you'd see it as a zoo or something.
Interesting. So I don't have any nothing coming up. I will tell you in July, the courts complex being constructed there at the Levy building, they will be coming forward with some conceptual preliminary design. It'll be coming in as a sort of like we've done with 612 West Main, although we haven't heard from them in some while. Will be an application, and then with that understanding that we're working through the process with that discussion about deferrals at the end of each. I have a meeting with them next Wednesday, I believe, just to kind of go over what they'll be sharing. So they should be able to get that out to you, well ahead of the meeting, obviously. And so that if we got any comments, you can review that. I've as always had the note on here about the update, the ADC district design guidelines. It's worth saying too that the historic conservation district guidelines certainly could be part of that as well. And pile on, but I know it will tell you Robert's been doing. He's been wearing a lot of hats in the office, but we've I think hired at least one of the positions that he's been recruited into. So it'll be freeing up some time, more time for us to pay more attention to the things that I know that we need to be doing for the BAR. So
I want to ask, actually, I was putting together the packet for this month, and I was going to put links in to the specific pages, but then as I was putting it together, it just slipped my mind. So I apologize about that. Is that something that you'd like in a future month? Would you like hyperlinks to the design guideline webpage, or are you happy with what we have?
It's easier for me if you've got the text in there.
Yeah.
But
I
think
swear,
links
the
are
hyperlinks are
if you wanted to.
The meetings. I'm sorry I'm sitting here. I knew there was something. So City Hall, I will be back. Robert and I will be back in the office the week after Labor Day. So City Hall will be reopening, and it could be going in now, I guess. But then I would have a mess here and a mess there. So I just prefer to have my mess in one place. But that's the goal for getting us back into City Hall. Now, I don't know if they tell us that we're back and then have to wear masks all day. I guess we can evaluate that. As far as in-person meetings, I received an email from, and Patrick, you're here. If Patrick Corey can unmute, if you Ken, if I need to clarify anything, but they sort of looked at four things. One is continue with Zoom, one is go completely in person, and then with some hybrids in between. I didn't quite understand if they were asking for what we thought or if they were sharing what they're thinking about. But it seems, one of the options is to have those who wish to have in-person meeting. We would meet at City Hall. Those that didn't could call in on Zoom. And then all of the public would attend via an online call. So members of the BAR could meet in one room if we wish, with staff, as many, and that's one option. And Patrick, I didn't quite understand the other hybrid beyond that. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So my understanding was that was from Brian Wheeler, who's the director of communications, and what they're looking to transition back into in-person meetings. He's trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of when we do get back to in-person meetings. I believe that part of that transition will be a hybrid meeting, like where you will have members of the public calling in, and also members in person in City Hall chambers. And so the idea is to alternate back and forth between those people who would like to speak in the public, or members of the public who would like to speak in person, and those who'd like to speak on the Zoom call. As I said, Brian, we're still trying to work out the kinks and how we're going to transition from where we are right now, which is a Zoom webinar, to hybrid, to eventually all the way back in person. We're going to be trying to go through this do this as safely as we possibly can for not only you guys, but also for the members of the public.
Am I the only person that prefers this setup that we currently have?
The funny thing is, I think it's more transparent, and I don't have to hop on a plane and fly down there to see somewhere else.
Well,
I think it's more transparent.
I know you guys do miss me ordering the dinner for you guys. I know you guys have been
That's true.
Been upset about that.
There's dinner?
Eventually.
I've never had dinner since I've been on here.
Robert's never had dinner with us.
I've never had dinner.
I've never had dinner.
So dinner has been an interesting evolution. When I started, we did not get dinner. And Bob Fenwick used to attend our meetings, and he felt bad for us. So he got us, at some point, got us dinner. And the city was great. They bought us, we had College Inn pizza, or we'd have, sticks, or we'd have some good stuff. Eventually, dinner became sandwiches. It just kind of, now there's no dinner. But I don't know, at the end of the year, do you think it'll be safe? Or we're going to go to CNO?
You guys get two.
I hope so.
We got a makeup.
I'm ready to go now.
We have a makeup dinner.
I jest, but I mean that seriously, is that, that was, you all provide a service to the city as volunteers. And that is something that we can offer you. And I think it's important that we do. So yeah, it's, and I guess anybody that was on the, maybe we got to get Sonia, her one, but I think what I've been trying to say is, I have, for example, Missy Creasy and I talked about this, and she sort of said, when this thing's over, tell us it's over. And then, but it's sort of like, okay, what exactly is going on? Are we transmitting this thing, or do we not what is going on? And I think as I said in the last meeting, a lot of folks still have kids at home, and kind of so I've just sort of suspended speculation and said, when they tell me it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Someone on the Historic Resource Committee was upset that this is what we have to do, but so I guess I would just say, unless we have a response to, sort of a recommendation back to to what Brian offered. And I'm just waiting for them to tell me we're back. I think this works. I think this functions. I do know that it's intensive on at least the staff time and coordination time within the city to, this is very different from the regular meetings. But so I think as soon as we can get back and meet in person, we will look to the idea that someone can, in the public, can call in and speak to you all, I think is a great tool. But I just think we're going to wait until when they say we can meet, and then we can make a decision then.
So the advantage I find with meeting like this, especially for us being the Architectural Review Board, is being able to see the visuals. And that is the worst setup possible in.
Yeah, it's behind us.
Yes. So I would hope that I would urge the city to while there's no one there, be working on a solution to that, to be able to get the visuals so that both the audience and the board can see them at the same time.
I think there's interest in moving these meetings out of council chambers. I would love that. When you all get back to City Hall, you'll see there's a lot of technology been installed in places, particularly in the NDS conference room. I mean, it looks like a sports bar in there with the TVs sitting there. But, so I know maybe one of the meetings we can have is the Super Bowl in there, but if somebody hasn't signed it up. But I think the idea being we would be in a room where we can be more collaborative across the table and have those visuals accessible. I think a little less formality would be good. But I
agree.
That's one of the ideas. So
good.
Because I've gone to, like when you go down to DHR to talk with them about a new project, you sit down at a table with a planner and you go through stuff, and it's a lot more, there's a lot more give and take and some understanding of, they're not there to obstruct, they're there to basically help you interpret the rules, which are always arcane and hard to figure out. Just like zoning. I mean, I've been an architect for almost 30 years now, and every time I go to a new town and try to interpret their zoning, it's an adventure. It's just not very clear frequently. Which
remember,
is why we need a 3D model of the city now.
Well, remember our first Zoom meeting almost a year ago, we had 4 items and it took us almost 4.5 hours. So
Right.
I think we've come a long, long way. I think this medium is, it benefits, particularly, just having Abby, calling in from Ohio. It is, I think there are parts of this that we will continue to take advantage of, and I hope we do. But I'm a people person, and I miss being in the room, having a conversation. And I know, all of us communicate differently, and like Sherry and I are learning, when we email each other, it's like, okay, I know that really sounded mean, but it's much better to have conversations in person, and we're not misunderstanding one another. But at the same time,
Jeff, it also limits you to a box this size.
yeah, this is so, the
Jeff,
thing
you can't make yourself with a Post-it note if you're in council chambers.
That's right. I try to do this when I'm at council meetings, but they, all right. So, and then I have nothing other than, I know, Carl, you brought up some things about the comp plan. If you all had any questions about that, we can talk about it quickly. And James, I just want to tell you, I know in last meeting, he mentioned an interesting site over near Jackson Via, and I went over there, and there's something interesting going on the side of the school. So who knows? James and I might be, 2 for 2 on unknown family cemeteries. What next, right?
I have a knack at finding human remains.
Yeah, we see dead people.
Both of you. That is interesting talent.
I was in Cobb Hall earlier today, and they're stepped into a classroom. There's this shelf with just jars with brains in formaldehyde. So lovely.
So, And oh, next Tuesday night, I know I sent you the link, but I can, put it out there. The Jefferson Madison Regional Library has invited myself, Ben Ford, and Tom Chapman with the Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society. And it's on the Jefferson Madison Regional Library calendar, but we will be discussing the unmarked graves identified at Penn Park and some of the research that this summer I'll be hopefully collaborating with the Historical Society on. So that's a nice turn of events. And then, like I said, Carl, anything on the comp plan, you've raised some things, and other than that,
As
we
far
can
as the
adjourn.
BAR is concerned, I think the comp plan was, I couldn't find anything alarming in it. So, and the comment period has ended as of Sunday. So unless, Jeff, if you know something that I don't, and you don't have to share it now, but it seemed like the language was not, it seemed supportive of the BAR. So
Yeah, the only thing I had commented earlier in the process of the ideas of some of what the BAR does relative to design issues, and discussing it throughout the city. And I said, well, we don't have, the BAR does not have a purview throughout the city. So be clear on if the intent is some mechanism for these ideas to be translated elsewhere throughout the city. The BAR is not going to to look at everything that's going on in the city. So as always, the hardest thing about these is just simply managing expectations. And as you've seen with the land use plan, when there's a gap in information, people will insert what they believe.
Well, you see, worst case scenario is what they all think, right?
It's possible. And remember, this is the challenge of a comprehensive plan. It is, the intent is a broad policy goals and to not get too much precision. Yet there's also this side that says, all right, well, if we're going to do that, what exactly do we mean by it? So there's a tension there, and there's no perfect answer. I think another conversation we had yesterday in our Monday staff meeting was, when I talk to people in the community, there are very real concerns about the direction of the city and some, addressing its past and things like that. And yet, from where my training is that the comprehensive plan is a land use document, and land use law in Virginia and zoning and ordinance. And so but yet that the community is asking for the plan to address some things. So I think, we in NDS have to do a better job of sort of seeing, communicating what does a comp plan do and not do, but also understanding what the community is asking, maybe how are we properly responding to this. So but I don't know where things stand. I know there's been a lot of comments have come in. So we'll see where it goes from here.
If it proceeds, the next step will be the code rewrite. Jody, you probably know better than I do. You already voted on it, I assume, or did you not? Does it go to council or?
No, there has been nothing formally proposed yet. It's all still being worked up. And that's what I've been trying to tell you all. If you still have any comments on the drafts that are out there, either the future land use plan or the chapters for the comp plan, let me know. That's the point of my being on the BAR, is to be able to take back those kinds of comments. So you please let me know. I found the Charlottesville Tomorrow reporting on this. There was a note, they put out a notice today, but their reporting has been very good. It's been thorough, and it has laid out the steps very succinctly and simply as it can be. So I recommend you all read their reporting. But there have been almost 3,000 comments. I've got a very full folder of all these comments. And the consultant at this point is analyzing, categorizing these comments. They will be providing a report to the Planning Commission in a week before our work session. Our work session is the last Tuesday of this month. So the week before our material will come out, and that's where the consultant's assessment of the comments will come. And the work session that we'll have with the consultant is simply to review these comments and see, try and determine what they mean for us. I'm sure there'll be lots of conversation, and there won't be anything settled at this last work session. We're not voting on anything, and the consultants will go back and take another whack at it.
Something I said to Carl earlier or yesterday, but I do wish we could kind of push, by the time the zoning rewrite comes up, that we could really push to have, you know, a 3D model that basically explains what the zoning means at a kind of a visceral level, because expecting people to, I mean, I just, like, my neighbors are all hyperventilating about being an R3 district, right? And it's like, well, it really depends on what the city's plans are for it in terms of scale and how we, you know, integrate, you know, like going back to Kurt Kasicker's ideas about nodes and things like that, that, you know, I think, you know, we have to develop a more sophisticated way rather than just huge swaths of R3. I think we need to have something that, you know, I'd like to have like a pub next to me, or you know, a small grocery store, things that don't exist, but unless you live right downtown, you know, making the neighborhoods more, really more functional neighborhoods. Right now, I think we're set up as a bunch of kind of, it's like mini bedroom communities, you know, it's not integrated. On a spatial level, I'm not even talking about, you know, racial and socioeconomic issues, which are equally an issue. So I think it's pretty interesting stuff. But I'll be interested to see. I mean, I've read some of it. I need to read more.
I did, on behalf of the BAR, you know, at least within, not the planning commission, but within the internal discussions, you know, I said that my concern was that the BAR was going to be placed in a position of you know, a lot of this higher density is located within the ADC districts, you know, and you're going to put the BAR in a difficult position of approving demolitions for the sake of, you know, and the response was that the intent, at least in like Park Street, Locust, Venable, was that the historic properties would be used, not raised, but be used for more intensive use. And I've used the example of where Robert lives up near Altamont, and how so many of the houses up there were actually built as boarding houses. A lot of folks lived in that small area of the city, and so sort of revisiting these larger structures as they were designed for, you know, apartments. But, you know, that remains to be seen. That's the intent, or at least that was a response. I said, but
that's where I think a form-based code actually is more appropriate, where you're not really deciding, you know, you have a big house, you're not necessarily deciding whether it's a single family house or an SRO. It's you know, it's, the issue is that, you know, you're trying to keep the form and the timeline of the city, but you're not trying to like hardline how things get used, which is what always appealed to me about the form-based code.
Well, I suspect there will still be time to continue to add comments. So I encourage you guys, you know, go on, and Jody's been sharing the links to the information. Give it a read and you know, add your comments. I'm going to stop. Where'd I go?
We all done?
But Jody, you got some great. Did you retire from something at UVA, or what was the? You had some great splash.
I retired from UVA. Not from something, but yeah.
No, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
So,
they won't
yeah.
let me back. James has a lock on my former cubicle. He won't.
Okay, I didn't know.
It was
that.
a very flattering article.
When did you retire?
I'd say kudos to you.
When
No,
was that
I'm
effective?
on Rosenwald schools now. I love it.
Was
no,
that June?
I'm
June
back
1st?
in private practice doing things that I want to work on, and it's all pro bono work. I'm focusing on African American nonprofits that have historic structures that need help. So I've gotten busy.
I'm on the board of the Jefferson School. I'll be calling you tomorrow.
They can afford to hire expensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
See what Andrea has to say about that.
Yeah, I also, I guess maybe a lot of people knew, I didn't know, Breck has jumped to do his own gig.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. So Robert's smiling, maybe he has some. Oh,
He
hear no
yeah.
evil.
Breck is, yes, he has another individual he partnered with, and interestingly, he's away as part of that, but there's a non-disclosure agreement, so neither he or Laura can tell me where he is this week. But but yeah, he's excited, and it's it's an interesting time. And I don't know if any of you met Breck's dad. His father, Kirk's a landscape architect, and they were in town a couple weeks ago. It was just really interesting, seeing how much Breck is like his dad. And I've sort of been wondering when this was going to happen. But yeah, he's really enthused, but he's also at that point where, and having been there myself, I say, well, now you're not a practitioner, you're a businessman. So so we'll see how he's doing. But it's exciting, and it's I may not see him as much as I used to, but that's where he is this week, somewhere that's not here that he can't tell us.
Just for clarity, he's not leaving the BAR.
No, I won't allow that. Hey, but that's a great question. I think Carl, Tim, we got to look at our who's up for. Even Sherry, I believe, is completing out Mike Ball's thing. Now she can reapply, but I think we need to, as we found, a year moves really quickly. So as we slide into the fall, I need to get the list out. We need to find some folks and start recruiting. And let's. I don't know, it's a good opportunity, to add some voices to the BAR that had, not that I want to lose you all. I think we should expand the BAR to include anybody who's a BAR member emeritus. But all right.
No.
And to give
never end.
I will be leaving in August. I mean, a year from August. That's when my term is up.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So
I'll change the rules fast.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Where do we stand with the awards? Have they actually been presented, or what's the deal with the awards?
They've been mailed out.
Oh.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So we aren't going to have some sort of like a
ceremony
for the award winners?
Robert and I are going to go. We were going to go around with like the big thing of balloons and bang on the door. That just seemed goofy. So, this is a work in progress, and I think we know that going into next year, we need to do things a little differently. But I'm
just wondering.
Robert looks very calm in the image here, but there's a lot going on underwater, and we've done as much as I think we can humanly.
I was just wondering.
All right. So yeah, next year there will be a at the Paramount, maybe we'll get Frank Lloyd Wright to be the host, and we'll do it big time.
Oh wow, that's wild. So actually, doesn't Fridays After 5 start back up this Friday?
I don't know.
Yes.
I think it does.
I'm old, and even living down the hill, the music's too loud.
They just announced Mary Chapin Carpenter.
Okay.
Yeah. And Juneteenth is this weekend. The Jefferson School has lots of activities on Saturday and in the weeks that follow.
Actually, same thing on Saturday the 20th. Is the 20th, what or just the 20th, the 19th? Anyways, next Saturday, 10th and Page, the dairy market's doing a bunch of stuff, but there'll be a community day for some 10th and Page organizations. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
The only other thing, Robert and I did get a
19th
grant.
is Saturday.
Okay.
Robert and I did. Robert wrote a grant request to DHR earlier this year. We got awarded $10,000 towards the first phase of the downtown mall cultural landscape report and study that I know we've been talking about for some time. So we're going to be moving forward with that. The first, and that'll primarily be the sort of the PIF level reconnaissance, determination of eligibility, and some other document inventory, things like that. And then next year we hope to then move into the next phase of that, which would be the treatment plan. So to just let you all know that that is actually beginning to happen. So and kudos to Robert again for taking care of that.
Let me ask you, Jeff, that's for putting it under register?
So, and Tim, you were on place. So the cultural landscape study and maintenance plan it predated me. There's been a lot of input on what it should do. And so the first step is the inventory, the evaluation of the mall as a constructed landscape, not the buildings, but the mall itself. And if that is eligible for the National Register, then the next piece is to look at that landscape and its components at a treatment plan for it. If it is deemed eligible for the National Register and probably be added to the historic district that's already there, then that's something we would consider moving forward with that nomination. But hopefully there's a limited amount of funds. We've been able to leverage some of that towards this grant, and we'll see as we proceed. But yeah, hopefully it would respond. The PIF would, and you all on the state board would find it eligible, and then we would go back and consider the formal nomination.
And then we can go retrieve all the chairs.
A cultural landscape report is not the same thing as a National Register nomination. So,
correct.
So you're going to use the research to then do both the cultural landscape report and possibly the nomination. But the cultural landscape report is important to get done. Part of the tree commission, we're putting out a PIF for the study of the trees themselves. And at one point that was tied into the cultural landscape report,
right,
and we couldn't shake anything loose. So we finally separated those, and we now have a LOI out for the lands for the trees.
Yeah, that Brian Daly and I had merged them long ago, with the idea being that something more substantial was needed for the maintenance plan, and so maybe we would get a consultant who could sort of tackle all of these things. And it just seemed, because of COVID and things, so that's when Mike Renane said, can we separate these back? We did. So I know they're moving forward with that. As far as, what would be incorporated into the cultural landscape report, the treatment plan would be certainly what comes, what Parks and Recs has and what that conversation is. So nothing's predetermined now. It's all going to be, hopefully work together. But I've never done a cultural landscape study, so I'll be learning a lot as we go. But we can get into the details later. I think everybody is, unless you have questions for me. Oh, the place committee report, right, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're going into a quarterly meeting thing, so I don't think we had anything this quarter. Yet we are not to the next quarter.
All right.
So.
Thank you, everyone. And move to adjourn.
Could I
Have a good evening.
second?
Second, aye.
Good night.